Hey everyone, Eric Thompson here. Hope that you are doing well as always, and welcome to, we're almost done, another installment of our top 10 videos, okay? This evening, we're considering top 10 action films. Next week, the 30th, I guess, top 10 romance films. And then finally, on Good Friday, April 6th, my personal top 10, ET's top 10, okay? But for this evening, top 10 action films. Before I get to the list, a couple bases to cover. One, I'm going to address it now before he gets upset about it. Tori is not here, so all those promises I made last time, I could not keep. I'm very sorry. Maybe she'll come for the next one. Who knows? I can't say. All right. Number two, on my little calendar, I make one up every year with all the movies on it that I'm going to do. We are here, okay? And the last video I posted was here. But I have missed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 reviews. What can I say? All right. For those of you who are aware of the church, the calendar, the liturgical calendar, Lent is a crazy time. We got a lot of things happening. Special services coming up for the Triduum, Holy Thursday, Good Friday, Holy Saturday, then Easter services at the Church of Holy Apostles, where I work and worship. We have Stabat Mater, which was a piece of music that I composed or producing that. We have a family Seder meal, special Good Friday service in the evening. There is a lot happening. And it is not that I do not think about these films often in the review. It's just that I simply find myself unable to commit that time necessary. So I hope you'll pardon that. But keep reading. And again, there's 3 whole years of reviews to look at from the past. So there it is, for what it's worth. Now, let's get right to it. We'll try and get this one done under 20 minutes, okay? But, as always, a bit of a preface about the action films. I'm going to read off some of the ones that I didn't put on the list after the list is over to show you how difficult this task is. What I tried to focus on was innovation and the action-adventure element itself. I found myself choosing these films just because of their plot. And that was not fair. Because in some action movies, you have really great plot, and in some, you have no plot at all, except for good guy kills all the bad guys. And so I tried not to base it only on how good or bad the plot was or wasn't. I hope you understand that. So I tried to focus on innovation and how exciting the action was, and how good it was, how frequent, how intense, whatever. Now, just keep that in mind. And some of the films chosen are a tip of the hat to a series, or to even, oh gosh, a family of films, or an establishment of films, such as we'll see with the ones that are to come. So let's dive right in. Top 10 action films. Number 10, Die Hard with a Vengeance, Die Hard 3. So here we're going to tip the hat once. Number 9, we're going to do the exact same thing. To the Die Hard franchise. The first Die Hard, whoa! Bruce Willis came out strong on that one. Die Hard 2, very good as well. But Die Hard 3, for me, was the favorite. You had New York City, of course, the first 2, and the 4th. We're all set in the U.S., but you were in New York City, and I always loved action films set in New York City that move around the city. That's why I like CSI New York so much, because it's such a diverse place, and a place where you never know what's going to happen next. New York City, very exciting. And you have the presence of Samuel L. Jackson. Before, Bruce Willis was kind of all on his own. He had his little sidekicks, little partner characters, but here, Samuel L. Jackson, what a strong choice for a sidekick, for the the unwilling Zeus. And their continued banter throughout the film, all of that. Very, very entertaining. But of course, here I'm talking about plot, and I'm sorry about that. But of course, continuous action. And not only action, but intelligent action, solving riddles, solving puzzles, McClane using his brain and not just his gun the whole time, okay? I enjoyed that part of it. And it moves fast. It moves through the whole thing, start to finish, great film. You remember that scene with the explosion right off the bat, boom, with the hot town, somewhere in the city, and boom, explosion, whoa, grabbed your attention. Number 9, again, this is a big tip of the, you know what, I'm going to get my hat just to do a real hat tip. Just don't leave, stay there, hold on. Okay. I think it's fair to do a real tip of the hat, the cowboy hat, the Stetson, to, no, not that, but that's coming up, to James Bond. Number 9, Goldeneye. Now, I realize the Casino Royale really changed the game for the James Bond franchise. But to me, Goldeneye will always be one of my favorites, if not my favorite James Bond film. Pierce Brosnan stepped in, and he had some shoes to fill. Not that Timothy Dalton was all that great, but the whole lineage of James Bonds before him, it was a heavy load on Pierce Brosnan. He was much younger, and he did not look like any of the James Bonds before him. Maybe a little bit like Dalton, maybe a little. And it was different for some people. And certainly was he Scottish or Irish? Scottish, I think. Yeah. Whatever. In any case, a departure from the norm in the James Bond series. Certainly, Sean Bean, an incredible addition, and a whole host of characters. Action, action, action. And it amped it up a little bit, as opposed to some of the films that had come even right before it. This was a more intense, a grittier James Bond. Of course, not what we would see with Daniel Craig in Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace and the upcoming James Bond film, whatever it's called. But a departure from what was before, but a taste of what was yet to come in the James Bond films. And of course, if you, like me, were playing video games during that time, you probably stumbled upon Goldeneye 64 for the Nintendo 64. And I'm gonna throw it out to Adam and John and Daryl and gosh, who else? Reese. I'm thinking of you too with this one, my man. All of us gamers, we got together and we gave that game a workout. It was a great fun time. So that was a lot of fun. The game certainly enhanced the movie experience. Number 8, another one from that same time period for me, very important. The Hunt for Red October. There are a lot of great submarine movies, all right, and it's hard to just choose one. But for action, I sure like this one because it was not super ultra intense action, but in keeping with other submarine films, it was the suspenseful action that kept you at the edge of your seat. But you still got gunfights, and you still got missiles, and you still got all the big military stuff. But again, as I commented before in videos past, way past, about like The Abyss, for example, I just love that underwater setting, the intensity, so much danger at all times. And certainly Sean Connery at the helm, Sam Neill, is that his name? Who was the lieutenant or whatever he was, and of course a much thinner and younger Alec Baldwin. Not quite the Jack Donaghy we know today, but he did so well in that role, and it was curious that was his only appearance as Jack Ryan, although they've made many jokes about that in 30 Rock if you watched any of that show. So there you go, The Hunt for October. I think I rented it from Blockbuster and had it for like 74 days or something like that, but eventually they dropped all the late fees on it, but it was quite a hefty late fee. I watched it every day for many days. My parents can attest to this. I mean, I just would put it on repeat, just watch it over and over and over again. Anyway, there you go. Number 7. Speaking of Sean Connery, The Rock. Whoa, was this a fun movie. I remember seeing it and recalling, among many things, Sean Connery's Humvee ride through downtown San Francisco. Do you remember that scene? When he was just tearing through the city streets and all this stuff, very exciting. And then certainly once you get onto the island of Alcatraz, it's just nonstop. You have a couple little breaks for dialogue, but really nonstop action. It's exciting. And the presence of that ultra-volatile nerve gas. Why do terrorists always choose volatile weapons? Why can't they choose stable ones? I don't know. Ed Harris, you know what I'm saying. Holy smokes, he brought it out for that movie. It was good. It was a blockbuster, not the blockbuster of blockbusters, but it did pretty well, and it was very, very exciting. The Rock, okay? Again, Nicolas Cage, hit and miss with him sometime, it seems like, but he did pretty well here. I thought he did anyway. He wasn't the best. It wasn't the worst. Give it to Sean Connery, though, and Ed Harris for really supporting the film. And again, it's in America. It's in a place that many of you perhaps have seen or even been to. I've been to Alcatraz twice. And know those places where they've been. And that's kind of fun, too, to have that level of connectivity. Now, I got to get my hat back. Because this one, all right, it's a big hat. Doesn't really sit This is just like it sits right on me. Oh well. Number 6. Again, very difficult to choose just one. But Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade. Oftentimes, on the top 100 or top 10 action film lists or whatever, you have, what's it called? The Lost Ark? No. Indiana Jones and the Lost Ark? No. What's it called? And the... I can't remember. Anyway, it's definitely not going to be Temple of Doom, and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull... That's a guilty pleasure, I'll admit it. But The Last Crusade, once again, thank you to Sean Connery. And they, I'm sure you've heard Lucas or Spielberg say that when they thought about that third film, which they knew they wanted to amp up from George Lucas's disappointing failure in the Temple of Doom, they said, we got to bring in another element to the story. Let's bring Indiana Jones's dad in. And they said, well, who are we going to get to play Indiana Jones's dad? What about James Bond? Because Indiana Jones is sort of the hippie version of James Bond, as it were. The archaeology is James Bond. And so they brought in James Bond, and there he was. And a lot of memorable scenes from that film. We have to oblige the lineage of those films, even though that fourth one, what is there to say? But it is what it is, and I don't know. I want to go with Indiana Jones and the Ark, and the Ark of the, and the Search for the Ark, Quest for the Ark, Search for the Ark, Quest for the. I have to look. I'm so sorry. I do not mean to deviate, but I don't feel like I can go another moment here without figuring out. And the Raiders of the Lost Ark, of course. What am I going to think of Raiders? Okay. Raiders of the Lost Ark. Thank you, Wikipedia, as always, for being right there with us. Fountain of knowledge. Raiders of the Lost Ark. Very good. Rated normally higher than the rest of them. But for me, personally, reminding you again, this is my top 10. Just my personal top 10 list. I liked The Last Crusade. Okay. Number 5. Here is a game changer. The Matrix. Again. Another film series where the ones that came after it just did not quite capitalize on the success of the first, even though Reloaded and Revolutions, or whatever they called it, tried to expand, even though really it seemed like just more of the same thing, just bigger and louder and more intense. Those two films were fair enough, but the first one did something very special for the world of action films. Again, you still had the dystopian, is that how you say it? Or dystopian, whatever. You still had end of the world type feelings. You had all that laid out. Man is underground, etc., etc. Very few people left on Earth. Machines are taking over, or they're taken over. But you also had sci-fi elements because the whole concept of the Matrix of almost a parallel world to our own. And then you had fantasy elements with prophecy and the chosen one and all of this. And so, again, forgive me for deviating only to the plot, but the foundation upon which they laid all that technology was pretty solid. And of course, not that they were the first to do it, because they weren't, but you had bullet time, which they used in a more stylish manner. And you can go back, and it's in movies, even in commercials, before The Matrix. But The Matrix came and they took it, they capitalized on it, and they really made it work in a practical way in an action film. And certainly now, it's a staple, from 300 to even the Max Payne video games, which the first one was almost built on bullet time and all of that. So, well done, Matrix. What can I say? Keanu Reeves, thank you very much. Lawrence Fishburne, you know what I'm going to say. Carrie-Anne Moss, boom. Okay? Let's just hold that one in our brains for a little bit. We're going to get serious. Why so serious? That's right, number 4, The Dark Knight. I'm going to come out and say it straight up. I prefer the first Batman to this movie, but I do not think it is a greater action film, okay? I like Jack Nicholson more. What's wrong with that? I'm not ashamed, but as an action film, The Dark Knight is exceptional. And of course, I'm sure we are all looking forward to The Dark Knight Rises. Is that what it's called? My recall is weak tonight. I apologize for that. We're looking to that. We're looking forward to that this year very much, to see what Christopher Nolan does. But here, you have Nolan taking this great franchise of films, and there were some ill ones in the whole series, and certainly all the offshoots and the side projects and the cartoon series and all this stuff, and the video games and video games and video games. But what he did with this film was very special, very unique, one that Batman Begins only sort of hinted at, okay? But The Dark Knight took it to a whole new level of intensity and psychological intensity with the presence of the Joker. And he, unlike Jack Nicholson's Joker, which seemed more playful, Heath Ledger's Joker was some men just want to watch the world burn, right? Thank you, Alfred. And here we see that. And it's not just philosophy. It's not just a metaphor. We see the Joker trying to burn Gotham City to the ground. Now, if that's not action, I don't know what is. You got a guy out there. He's got a whole army of guys that look just like him, kind of. And they all have RPG launchers and flamethrowers and machine guns and armored trucks and all this stuff. Holy smokes. And they're out there doing incredible violence. And then Batman swoops in. It's a great action film. Start to finish. Very intense. Very exciting. Not only because it is exciting just to the eyes in the action, but also because it keeps you gripped in. And everything leads to the next scene. You know, you don't have a gunfight just for the sake of a gunfight. You know what I'm talking about. A movie that just has action for its own sake. Just let's see how much stuff we can blow up, just to see if we can blow it all up at the same time. But you have action that leads to something else. Fights have a consequence, okay? Heroes get hurt. Bad guys get hurt. They're weakened, okay? And so you have a real superhero film. I know. There's no such thing. You know what I'm saying. Anyway. Number 3. Braveheart. I will freely admit, the first time I saw this movie, I fell asleep. It's true! If you go back and watch it, the first, 20 minutes are kind of slow. And I was watching it, I must have just been tired, and I fell asleep. And I woke up and said, well, I didn't miss anything there. Years later, that I finally watched it and realized what I had missed all that time. If I'd only watched 4 or 5 more minutes, I would have seen this unbelievable masterpiece at work. I feel like a lot has been said about this movie, and so I don't have too much to comment on, except that the grand scope of this war was very enthralling to me, very exciting. The battles seemed reasonably accurate and historically sound, and certainly even in the consideration, in Wallace's considerations of cavalry and how do we actually do combat with this opposing force. That was worthwhile, and I appreciated that it wasn't, again, just a senseless fight, a reckless entanglement, but that there was a real logic to it, a logic to how the fights were laid out, how the battle sequences were created and generated. Now, I cannot say that is the same for our number 2, but what a number 2. Terminator 2, Judgment Day. Here, like Indiana Jones, you have a sequel that is normally not rated as high as its predecessor. But I think I saw T2 first, and that's why maybe I'm a little biased toward it. But gosh, what a film. Schwarzenegger in his prime. We're talking Predator time, okay? Right in there with this huge group of movies that he did. How exciting. Gosh. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. You have seen this movie. I'm sure you have. And if you've not, it's one to consider. Start to finish. Like so many of these other ones, it pulls you in. And you got time travel. And you got robot-ish type, android, cyborg type, humanoid figures and forms. And you got the T-1000 or whatever it was, and he's going crazy, going nuts, shape-shifting. He's a shapeshifter. Simple enough. And then you got the lady with the shotgun and the explosive rounds, or the grenade, whatever it was. Just thrilling. Thrilling. Very exciting. Gruesome, but not over-the-top gruesome. A couple scenes there, I realize. Anyway, T2, number 2, Number one, not easy to choose. Someone asked me, they said, how do you choose? And I said, you just got to commit to it. You remember in the last one, in the drama films, I forgot Amadeus, which would have been number 2. Hey, I committed. What can I say? You just got to commit to it. But since this list is my personal one, just as you have your personal lists, they can always be changed. That's why they're personal. They're personal to you. Number 1, Gladiator. So yes, just to be clear, I am saying that I think Gladiator is greater than all of the other movies I have just listed. Okay? Why? It's not always easy to make a good action film without guns. Can we just say that honestly? Guys like guns. We like everything about guns, all right? It is a guy thing. It is a man thing. Shoot 'em up, you know what I'm going to say. Last Man Standing, gun movie. War movies, gun movies. We like it when they talk about guns, when they're cleaning guns, when they're reloading guns, when they're field stripping guns, okay? When they're getting new guns. And how many guns you got in Gladiator? 0 guns. I'm just going to put that out there, just for your consideration, before I move into the scope of this film. I was relating to someone the other day. One of the things I think makes a real epic film, and that is travel, the sense of travel. And here, in this movie, we begin where? In Europe, Germania, right? And then, where does he go? To Italy, right? Because he's going to go try and save his family. Then where does he go? Morocco. Then where does he go? Back to Rome. And he's running around Rome and all these places and doing all this stuff, and eventually ends up, of course, in the Grand Colosseum fighting the Emperor. Very exciting. Very, very exciting. You remember that initial battle with the Visigoths or whoever they were. I don't know. I'm sorry for not knowing better. But you remember that. Huge battle scene. Huge, huge, huge. And you've got all the artillery going off and all that. And that's close to being like a gun for this time. Okay, fair enough. Flaming arrows and exploding vessels, or I'll say vases of oil and all that stuff. And then the cavalry charge and the dog jumping through the flames. And then even smaller, you got the hand-to-hand combat. You got the swords and the gladiators flashing and all this stuff and ringing out. And then finally, at the very end of the fight, you got one-on-one combat between guys and all that stuff. You started here, and you came all the way down. And we never took our eyes off the screen the whole time because it was so enthralling. And then from there, you have the real big Colosseum scenes, even when he's in Morocco or wherever that is. I can't remember where he was. And then you got him against, it's like they're some guys against some guys. Then you got Maximus against 5 guys. And you got Maximus against 1 guy. And then you're in the Colosseum. And then again, you got the big, super huge battles that shrink down to just a couple guys. And then finally, at the end of the film, when you've had so much of this macro, you have one micro fight between Maximus and the Emperor, and what a fight. I don't think I've ever felt more satisfied in a film to see the protagonist wail on the antagonist than when Maximus finally got a chance to seek revenge for what Commodus had done. So, my number 1 is Gladiator. Now, I'm not saying you have to agree, but you can agree with me in this one thing. Any of these films, well, maybe not The Hunt for October. Or maybe just the bottom 3, maybe 4, would not really serve to be appropriate number 1s. But these are all such unbelievable films. How can one choose? Like I said, you have to just simply commit to it. Now, let me tell you about some of the ones that did not make the list, but that I had thought of. Independence Day, Black Hawk Down, Apollo 13, Aliens, True Lies. There's a movie where the plot seems to make no sense at all. You're here and you're there, and he's a spy, and he's on computers, and then Jamie Lee Curtis, and then this and that, and what is happening? Great action film, though. Mission Impossible 2. I never saw 3 or 4, but I like 2 a lot. I watched it a lot. Saving Private Ryan, Munich, Inglourious Bastards. Any of the movies from the Bourne trilogy. The recent Star Wars film, 2009 Star Wars film. Great action. Very exciting, okay? And the list goes on. I'm looking here at my shelf of movies here. Even the Pirates of the Caribbean films were action-packed. The Patriot with Mel Gibson. Great action film. What's going on here? Unstoppable. Now that's a different beast altogether. You got no guns, no swords in there at all, but you got trains. But a great suspenseful action film. So generating these lists is not something that one does easily. But in the end, I mean, look at my thing. You know, I wrote it and then scratched them all out. I wrote it again, and then I scratched it all out again, and I have my list here on the side in the word processor here on my screen. And so it is not a simple thing to generate these lists, my friends. But thank you all the same for watching and for commenting and for giving your comments, you know, for saying, I think you're right here, I think you're wrong here. I appreciate that. I really do. I think it's worthwhile to me and to the process. Okay, 2 more top 10 videos left. Next week, top 10 romance films. Before, for Valentine's Day, where this whole thing kind of started, I talked about romance films in light of a more theological reflection. I was talking about, you know, I went through different expressions of love in film. But this time I'm going to get down and really say, what are my favorite sentimental, sappy movies, okay? And then on a Good Friday, E.T.'s top 10, my personal top 10 favorite films. There's a lot more to talk about. Not right now. I'll do another video post in a couple of days. There's some exciting things that I want you to keep in mind before the end of Lent, and certainly I do want to come up with a plan to make up for those missed reviews. I do apologize for that, but I'm doing my best. I know that you know that I am. Let me take a drink of coffee here. In fact, right now, as soon as I finish, as soon as I quit recording, I'm going to continue working on them. So, thank you again for watching. Please post your comments below. Please, I beg of you. Put something in there, okay? Get it in there. Enjoy yourself. And I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you again for watching. Take care. Bye.